On the horn.
Oh, on the horn or on the? Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
yeah.
pop up. Let me. Oh, Roger!
Yes.
Wow, Roger Stone.
How are you?
We are well, Roger. The more important question: how are you after what an amazing story this whole debacle has been? But what a great way to end it. Or it's not obviously it's not over. But for you to have the president say, ain't gonna happen on my watch, and you got that pardon.
Well, it's even worse than you know, because despite the fact that under the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Prisons' current policy of those convicted of nonviolent crimes being moved to home confinement or to time served, they were trying to send me to a prison in rural Georgia, which in the last 2 weeks has released a serial rapist, a pedophile, a child pornographer,
and that's just one guy.
a guy who held up 2 liquor stores with a shotgun to protect them from COVID-19. But we need to put Roger Stone in there. I challenged that at the trial court level. I was denied. Then I appealed it to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, figuring, well, based on all precedents in every circuit in the country in which someone in my position had been moved to home confinement, based on the law, based on the current regulations, based on my age and my health,
sure,
and based on the conditions in this particular prison, surely they would delay sending me there. But no, 20 minutes before the president commuted my sentence, the D.C. Circuit Court voted 3-0 to give me essentially the death penalty.
Yeah, I'll ask you straight up, Roger. Do you believe that this deep state wants you dead?
I do, for a number of reasons. First of all, as you know, I have filed 2 appeals of my case. And therefore, normally speaking, my appeal would take about a year, cost about $1 million. But the things that would be exposed at my appeal trial would be extraordinary.
Right.
Regarding the investigation, regarding the court system, regarding my indictment. I mean, there's a lot here that people don't know that would come out at trial, and they don't want that to come out. So this is why I think I was given a de facto death sentence. I mean, the idea that the Democrats are arguing Stone got special treatment. Yeah, I got special treatment at each stop of the way. When 29 FBI agents storm your home at 6 a.m. in the morning for a nonviolent process crime, that is definitely special treatment.
Unbelievable.
When Comey, Mueller, Brennan, Hillary, McCabe, et al., when they all lie to Congress, but none of them are prosecuted, but you are, that's definitely special treatment.
Yeah.
And when Avenatti, Michael Cohen, Rick Gates, Paul Manafort are all taken from prison and sent to home confinement to protect them from coronavirus, but they want to put you in a prison where there are now over 200 confirmed cases among inmates and 53, I think it is, among prison workers. That's definitely special treatment. So I thank God. I thank the president for having the courage to do this in a presidential year. I came this close to destruction.
Isn't that amazing that we have? I don't know if it's Trump's sheer balls or his inexperience at president as a president, and I say that not in a bad way.
Politics in general.
Yeah, and politics in general. Like, oh, it's an election year, you can't do that, and it's like, no, I'm going to do the right thing. This guy did not deserve what, like you said, the special treatment you got over the course of this entire thing has been so obvious. Like, who doesn't see this? This is a guy, like he said, had armed with automatic weapons come to his house and drag him out of there when literally they could have called his lawyer and said, let's make one of those appointments for you to come in and we'll do. What danger did they say you ever posed that they needed to come to your house with that kind of force?
Well, they justified it by saying that I was a flight risk. But if I'm a flight risk, they knew I didn't own a valid passport. They knew I didn't have a gun. And thanks to them, my mug is universally recognized for good and for bad. So the chances that I was going anywhere were zero. And 4 hours later, after my arrest, when I was arraigned, they didn't ask for a cash bond for release, proving they never really thought I was a flight risk. This was a circus put on for CNN. This had, I guess, two intentions. One, to intimidate me. Well, they don't understand that I'm Sicilian. You understand, Anthony. This was not intimidating.
No.
Or to intimidate other people into lying when the government leans on them to do so. It was just a giant waste of the taxpayers' money. 29 FBI agents, 17 armored vehicles, a helicopter, K-9 Corps, 2 amphibious units, frogmen carrying assault weapons. I mean, the whole thing was so over the top and unnecessary. The day before, they had talked to my lawyer by phone because we turned over 30 pages of text messages that proved that Randy Credico was, in fact, my source for what little I knew about WikiLeaks. And by the way, knowledge of WikiLeaks or interest in it is not a crime.
No, of course not.
Where's the Russian collusion? Where's the espionage? Where's the treason? Where's the coordination with WikiLeaks, for that matter?
Well,
Roger, because it doesn't exist.
Roger, you forget it is a crime to look at WikiLeaks. If you listen to CNN, remember when they said we have the emails, we have what was in WikiLeaks, and since it was a leaked thing, you shouldn't look at it because that's illegal and you could get in trouble. We'll decipher it and dissect it and then tell you what it says. The balls on CNN.
That was specifically Chris Cuomo who said that.
Yeah, Chris Cuomo.
Fredo.
Fredo.
Who's actually, by the way, not a bad guy. He's kind of a friend of mine, even though he's clearly trying to jump ahead of Anderson Cooper in the ratings to see who can be more outrageous than leftist.
You know what's interesting, Roger? You did work, of course, with who I believe was a very misunderstood yet great president, Richard Milhouse Nixon. And people might go, what? Are you crazy? No, very misunderstood. And I think he did a lot of good for the country as far as the Vietnam War goes. Opening up China in hindsight might have been a problem, but at the time it was a big thing to do. The media back then, compared to the media now, the way the president was treated during. Even before Watergate and then during Watergate, how Nixon was treated by the mainstream media and how Trump is treated and how you realize you were treated by mainstream media. What are the starkest differences that you can tell us about those two eras?
There are really more similarities. First, let's speak about Nixon. So he reached a strategic arms limitation agreement with the Soviets. He opened the door to China without ever knowing that the Bushes and the Clintons were going to give him the keys to the factory. He ended the Vietnam War ahead of the schedule that the Pentagon wanted. He ended the 18-year-old draft for men. Yeah. He desegregated the public schools without incident, without bloodshed. He launched the war on cancer. He unilaterally saved Israel in the 1973 Yom Kippur War. He was committed to peace. That's one of the reasons why they had to get rid of him. It's many of the same actors here. Here's the major difference. I think he and Trump have kind of been equally mistreated by the press. But in those days, there was no internet. And therefore, the corporate-owned media had an absolute monopoly on the flow of information. ABC, NBC, CBS, the New York Times, the Washington Post. And then in those days, Newsweek, Time, Look, Life, the National News.
Oh yeah, they were huge.
There was no place else to go to state your case. Trump would never have been able to have become president without the rise of a vibrant, robust alternative media based in the internet, which is why now they're trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
They saw
why they're trying to censor everybody. I'm surprised we're even here at this moment, if you want to know the truth.
You don't think there was more integrity back then either?
No.
No, actually, it's the same essential divide that we have. The mistake people make is to say things in Washington are divided between Democrats and Republicans. That's really not the truth. It is a contest between insiders and the elites who have run everything for the last 30 years and an outsider. Donald Trump doesn't belong to their clubs.
Right.
He cannot be influenced. He can't be pressured. He doesn't believe in groupthink. He would rather have lunch with a group of cab drivers than a group of Fortune 500 executives. He's a regular guy, and he's not controllable. That's their real problem with it. So when he says, I want to get our troops out of Afghanistan, out of Syria, out of Iraq, that scares the hell out of them because they're making big money on having our troops there. They have an investment there. And of course, they have tried to thwart every attempt he has made to try to end our overseas commitments because, let's face it, our own country is crumbling. Our own infrastructure, our schools, our roads, our bridges. We need to spend the money here, not abroad.
Right. Do you see what happened to a lot of the people that did help Donald Trump get elected in 2016? They have been wiped off the face of social media. And I mean, you could go through a laundry list of names of people that have been suspended because of terms of agreement violations on these various social media platforms. Do you think that's going to have an effect this coming election, or do people have their eyes open like we do? We've had the media pound us. You have had just an unbelievable ride, a nightmarish ride with the media and deep state trying to destroy you. Do people see this? Is it obvious enough?
Well, I think it's obvious to some people and not to others. I mean, the day my commutation came through, a Friday, earlier in that day, Facebook announced that they were suspending forever. I was being banned forever from Facebook and Instagram based on an allegation that I owned 100 fake Facebook pages, which comes out of some left-wing research company in New York. Anthony, I've never owned one, not one. Now, it's true that I have set up pages for each one of the books I've written, and I have in the past set up pages for legitimate political campaigns or organizations, but this idea that I own 100 fake Facebook pages is entirely false, but there is no court of appeal. They just chop your head off. So I lost 250,000 followers on Facebook. I lost, 60,000, 50,000 followers on Instagram. I've moved over to Parler. I recommend it. They don't censor anybody. You can go on there whether you're a Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, communist, vegetarian. It doesn't matter what you are. They will let you post there. So I think that's the way it should be. The problem, of course, is that the average people don't see this in the terms that we do. It's going to hurt the president very badly because, in essence, it takes away his amplification. It takes away the megaphone of his supporters, and it removes social media as an effective platform for the counterattack, which is what he's best at. He's the greatest counterpuncher in American political history, but you need a platform to counterpunch from, and CNN isn't going to be it.
No. Have you seen, they're trying to get Biden to not be involved with the debates. I saw this today. A couple of people have come out and said, hey, this Trump is such a liar. Don't even bother. It'll just be him telling his lies. And another one said, oh, it's just a soundbite contest and doesn't really have any impact on what the people learn about the candidates. So they're already, and I saw this coming a year ago, they're already trying to come up with these excuses as to why, and I truly believe this, we are never, ever going to see a Joe Biden-Donald Trump debate. They can't let it happen. This guy is incapable of speaking on or off prompter, but you get him off prompter with Donald Trump and people asking him spur-of-the-moment questions, this guy will self-destruct like one of those robots on Star Trek that you give a paradox to.
Or like any time he's ever gone off the cuff at the end of something he said.
Yeah, even on prompter, he's terrible. So I don't think we're ever going to see
It'll be impressive, though. I got to admit it. If they happen to pull it off, it's an impressive feat.
I think it's going to be very hard because just the issue of not debating can hurt him very badly. Secondarily, if I were the president, I wrote this, I would not necessarily agree to the debate schedule of the Presidential Commission on Debates, which is not appointed by the president, not a commission, and not about debates, about limiting debates. When you're the president of the United States, one of two major party candidates, you can decide when and where you're ready to debate, and you can bargain for the format and the moderator. Those things should not be dictated to you.
No.
On the other hand, I think Trump is always entertaining, and the debates are crucial to his strategy because I think he is a little behind right now. The combination of the mainstream media lying about him day in, day out, round the clock, and the ill effects of COVID-19, which are beyond his control. He didn't have any choice but to overcompensate, to err on the side of caution with a pandemic. Nobody knew whether these projections were real or inaccurate. So he had to go the safest way, and it has had the unfortunate effect of destroying his calling card, destroying the single largest argument for his reelection, the boom economy.
That great economy.
Wouldn't you say it's kind of Frankenstein's monster, though, that got him elected, then is now the same thing that's kind of screwing him over completely?
Not necessarily. I mean, I do think that there are many firsts in 2016. It's the first time we've elected a president who wasn't a senator or a governor or a congressman or a general. We've never had a businessman or a businesswoman as president. We've also never had anybody who had no governmental experience at all. Trump is a phenomena unto himself. I mean, now the truth is the single most important commodity for one who wants to run for president is universal name ID. I mean, he had that from the get-go. Marco Rubio, who is that exactly?
Yeah.
Who is that? Look, these country club Republicans who are ripping out their hair saying, oh, we're going to lose. This isn't over by a long shot. No. I've looked at these polls. I think most of them are accurate, but none of them show him so far behind that he could not make up that ground. And I think he will, because he's a great campaigner. He's a great communicator, even with the limits of COVID-19. But here's the other one that they're trying to preempt. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Trump is going to steal the election, and then he's going to refuse. He's going to refuse to leave.
Right.
And he'll have to be removed by the military.
Yeah.
No, guys, you're planning to steal the election, and you're trying to remove Trump's ability to challenge that legally by preempting with this phony message. Trump should not agree to the outcome of the election until he sees the outcome.
Till you see it. Why would you?
If it's stolen, if it's phony, if it's illegal, then he should have the right to say so. He himself said, look, if I lose and I lose fair and square, then I lost and I'll leave. So they're trying to preempt, particularly Adam Schiff of all people.
Oh, the worst.
Trying to preempt, what he can and cannot do. Why? Because they're going to steal us blind. That's why. They're already doing it. I mean, it's happening even as we speak.
That's what they're trying to do. The news is involved. Hollywood's involved. It's all a big goddamn scam.
They're planting seeds, but at this point, it's just like they're putting up trees and expecting us not to notice.
Yeah, it's so blatantly obvious. Everything, the pandemonium in the streets about Black Lives Matter, the panic about COVID. And I understand if people are in a category where they're older or have pre-existing medical conditions, I get it. But this crashing of the economy, this prolonging this, just going on and on with no end in sight, and then saying, and I've heard these pundits say this on the news where they go, you have to ask yourself, are we better off than we were 4 years ago? And it's like, you can't use that example in this kind of atmosphere.
I think a better comparison would be this. Okay, so the economy's in the toilet. Who better to rebuild the economy? A man who's just proven he knows exactly how to do it, who got us record job growth, record wage growth, record levels of employment, or a guy whose prescription for the sick patient will kill the patient? Higher taxes, more regulation, and bigger one-size-fits-all trade deals. To me, it's pretty clear. Trump is now the proven commodity.
Right.
Last time you ran, what did they say? Oh, the stock market will crash. We'll have a depression. No, he brought us record economic growth.
Yeah,
the guy who did it once can do it again. The other guy doesn't know what day of the week it is.
He's terrible as far you see him speaking at some of these when he's in his basement or they prop him up behind a podium at some event, and he talks about bringing jobs back to America. And then on the other hand, he talks about how he's going to take away those tax cuts that Trump gave to his big business buddies. Meanwhile, The tax cuts went to these small businesses, and that's what's keeping businesses in America. You can't talk about how you're for the working man and then say how you're going to put more regulation on the energy industry and put us back at the dicks of OPEC when right now we're a leading exporter. We're the leading exporter of energy in the world. Why would you want to put a guy in there that wants to stop fracking, offshore drilling, re-regulate every refinery and pipeline? If you're listening for 2 seconds, you realize how detrimental this guy would be to our country.
Well, and I just don't know how he bluffs his way through the fact that his son...
The media just gets on board.
Yeah, he doesn't really.
His son took $1.4 billion from the Chinese. That's billion with a B.
Yep.
You didn't pay him because he was a financial wizard. So why did you pay him? And for Joe to say, you can't attack members of my family, that's not going to cut it.
No.
You took 1.4 billion. By the way, while we're at it, Joe Biden's been in office since he was 29 years old. Where did his wealth come from?
Yeah, I'd like to know a lot of those people.
He went from the Senate at 29 to vice president, and he's been out of office now 4 years. Where did the wealth come from? They want Donald Trump's tax returns. I'd like to see Joe Biden's tax returns.
How does a public servant like Joe Biden, years dedicated to serving the people, where does he come out of that with millions upon millions of dollars? Unless, I'd like to see what his yearly pay is for all of his jobs he had in Washington, and then put that against what he has now and go, how did you get that?
But we all know how he got it, and that's the same thing. It's business as usual. That seems to be what people want. They want to go back to just being fucking lied to.
And screwed over and cheated and have these guys lie to your face. It's so blatant now, the lying. The media has had to try to cover up for such obvious bullshit that these people are feeding us that I sit here and wonder how everyone doesn't see it. But some people are so blinded by just Trump hatred or just America hatred. There are people that want this country to fail, and they will never see the obvious corruption and nonsense that's going on in this country.
There's also a Stockholm element too of like, fine, just take what you want.
Your captor, yes, you start loving your captor. It's crazy, Roger. In all the time between the time you got involved in politics as a young man, have you ever seen anything this nuts?
No, I really haven't. I mean, look, I grew up in the outskirts of New York City, and therefore I started reading the New York Times when I was in my early teens. And I recognized then that it had, a left-wing or establishment slant. But it was just a slant. Today, it's total garbage. I mean, they print things on page one above the fold that are simply not true. The other thing that used to be true, because I've been in politics for 40 years, is if any media outlet was going to write about you, they would call and ask for comment. They would give you
simple, right? Let's talk to the guy.
Journalism 101. But since my indictment and my conviction and my commutation, the New York Times, the Washington Post, most of the three networks, except for ABC, to their credit, they just feel they can write anything about you without giving you an opportunity to comment. Now, you don't have to call them back. You don't have to comment. But the rules of modern journalism, which is supposed to be objective, detail that they're supposed to ask you for a response. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a total breakdown in the system. They are just as infected with Trump derangement syndrome as their handmaidens in the Democratic Party. And they got increasingly hysterical. You see, when Russian collusion didn't work, then they tried this Ukrainian farce. That didn't work. I'm not going to say that they created COVID, because I don't think they did, but they have sought to benefit from it politically. And they get more hysterical at each level. And until they can bury Trump, they won't be happy. And I'm just telling you, I've known the guy for 40 years. Don't underestimate him. Mm-hmm. He's a brawler. The guy's not going to go down without a fight. And he knows exactly who's at fault here. And he's got enormous courage. He told me on the phone when he called to tell me he had decided through an act of clemency to commute my sentence, because he realized I was facing essentially imminent death in a COVID-infested prison. And he knew my trial was ridiculously unfair. He said, many of the people around me told me not to do this. He said, on the other hand, many people in the country told me to do it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I thought about it, and I've decided it was the right thing to do, even in an election year. That takes enormous cojones.
Sure.
That takes enormous courage. Look, I prayed for it every single day, and I had confidence in the end that he would do the right thing, because the people who are still trying to screw General Flynn, the people who screwed me, are the same people who tried twice to screw him.
Yeah.
These people have no bounds, no rules. The law does not apply to them. It's kind of do as I say, not as I do. And I think he's well aware of the fact that it's the same tiny cabal of criminals who have tried to throw him out of office based on completely fabricated evidence and an abuse of power that makes Watergate look like small potatoes.
Roger, I got to ask you this question. With everything we've seen happening over the past, his entire presidency, and even beforehand, his candidacy, once they knew he was the candidate, they started this crap rolling. Do you see this desperate last-minute, in case of emergency, break glass, perhaps someone taking a shot at him from I'd hate to see it, but I don't put anything past these monsters. An assassination has been something that has changed things pretty quickly over the course of history. Do you put that past them?
Well, as you know, I wrote a book on the Kennedy assassination. It's called The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. It's available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, or you can go to stonecoldtruth.com in the store and get a signed copy. It was a New York Times bestseller. It still does quite well. I put 4 years of research into that book. I believe John F. Kennedy was not only a very great man who never had the opportunity to completely fulfill his promise as president, but I also think he was murdered for strictly political reasons.
Wow, yeah.
So it's something I'm concerned about. I worry about it. I pray about it, which is the best thing you can do, that the president and his family be protected. There are people who have a huge stake in his removal because 2016 was supposed to be Jeb Bush versus Hillary Clinton. Heads I win, tails you lose. Everything remains the same. Leave the dirty diapers on the baby, change the pins. It was all in the bag. It was all fixed. And then along comes, most improbably, this brash billionaire from New York who doesn't know that he can't win, and therefore he goes out and wins. And it really upset their apple cart. And that's what we're still being affected by. The fact that they, contrary to the oldest American tradition, they refuse to accept the results of a democratic election.
And then they keep projecting.
I wasn't happy when Clinton got elected. I wasn't happy when Obama got elected. No. I thought trying to impeach Clinton over Monica Lewinsky was stupid. Yep. I said so at the time. It was idiotic. The House Republicans only hurt themselves, and they lost seats in the next election.
Yep.
There were so many other kids he was raping. Go on.
Apparently.
Well, I wrote a book on that, too. That's why I think I was targeted. By the way, it wasn't incidental that the two leading prosecutors in my case had both just worked for Hillary Clinton. That's not
what a conflict.
It's amazing that comes out last week, though, and nobody's talking about it.
Yeah. No one's talking about that.
Astonishing to me.
So many trips, double the trips that he took, and then telling the Secret Service they could sit this one out.
Yeah, just go over there. I'm going to go over to this hut.
I wrote all of that in my 2016 book, The Clintons' War on Women. You have not learned anything in the last 18 months that I didn't report. The trips to the island, the trips on the plane.
Yeah.
I had the flight logs. I had the testimony of Virginia Giuffre. She was Virginia Roberts then. I had reported that. I'd seen these documents already, where she reports seeing Bill lounging with two 17-year-old girls. So it's all been out there, but the mainstream media has refused to cover it. Now, suddenly, these are shocking new details. They were out there previously, but they just didn't get widely reported. A great reporter, Nick Bryan, who worked at that time for Gawker, wrote the seminal pieces on Epstein. He had all of this about the same time that I did.
Oh, yeah, it was out there.
But they all act like it's new. It's really extraordinary.
Yeah, Netflix broke it.
Yeah, it's the Bill Clinton thing is just how they protect this guy is astounding. This would be if there was that much evidence against Donald Trump for anything close to this, they would come out, they would pump it, they would have people on talking about it. But Clinton, you don't get anything. And that Hillary, I don't put anything past her either. Her and her little group of people.
It seems other than everything they pull out of Trump with her, it's like, yeah, it's a fundraiser, or it's someplace that is where the elite meets the elite, and you would be invited to. It's never these, it's not Clinton who's like shirtless in a pool.
Yeah. It's a party or something, right?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, these documents that have just gotten publicity actually exonerate Donald Trump. Virginia Roberts is specifically asked on the stand, did you ever see Donald Trump? Did he ever visit the island? Was he ever at the house? She said no. She said, I met him once. He was a perfect gentleman. He stayed 15 minutes and he left at a public event. But they don't tell you that part. That part's missing.
Oh, why would they? Of course
as far
not.
as Hillary Clinton is concerned, let's face it, she would steal a hot stove.
Roger, you're awesome. I tell you, I cheered when I heard that the president had commuted your sentence. I think the entire thing you went through was a textbook railroading, and I'm glad to see they didn't win by murdering you, by putting you in that prison.
Say it's a real shame if you don't. Yeah, aren't you afraid of that a little? I didn't want to ask, but of the old. Do you think the only reason why you haven't committed suicide yet is because they're afraid that you're so in the public that you have all this information on them? In all seriousness, like if something happens to you, people are going to just know.
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to happen because and people mock me for this, and they make fun of me and so on. I don't really care. I put my faith in God. I came to believe in January that God would protect me, would not abandon me, that he would deliver me from my persecutors, and he has.
Look at that.
So I don't. If people out there want to say, okay, that's a head fake, that's stone play acting, or trying to get sympathy, fine. I don't care what you think.
No, if you're facing prison,
yeah. The big man. I don't care what he thinks, and he knows what's in my heart. So I've been put in this place for some reason, and at some point he'll reveal it to me. But I'm just glad to be alive. I'm glad to be with my family. And frankly, I want to do everything I possibly can to get this president reelected, because if he is not reelected, the country is going to go hurtling over the cliff to globalism.
Yeah.
You better start learning Chinese soon.
Oh, my God.
Yang.
Roger, thanks so much, man. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. Be well. God bless. And we'll talk to you soon, man.
Great to
Thank you, sir.
Take care, my friend.